Okay, guys, first one up is from N.J.A. Hi, John. Love the show. A lot of people, whether they like the new season of Game of Thrones or not, felt it rushed to the finish. I understand that with the big battles, the budget might not have allowed for more episodes per season, but then they could have made one more season instead. Benioff and Weiss are attached to a Star Wars trilogy. Do you think this could have had something to do with why the series needed to end?
This is a common thing that's going around right now, and a common theory that it's the Benioff and Weiss's connection to the upcoming Star Wars franchise that they're going to be doing is somehow responsible, and could it be responsible for the rush nature of the final thing. Now, a whole bunch of people love what they're doing in Game of Thrones this year. A bunch of people don't love what they're doing with Game of Thrones this year. But what I think is a common thread is that amongst the people who aren't happy with it and the people who are, I think we all kind of feel a little bit of a sense of a rushed nature to things right now. I'm one of those who I'm loving this season, but even I say, yeah, I like what they've done, but you've got to it pretty quick, like in the episodes we have. And I've been complaining about that ever since they made the announcement that the final 2 seasons, Rob, were only going to be 7 episodes and 6 episodes. I'm like, this is one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic television show in history. Some of the biggest numbers the world have ever seen. Why do you need to only do 7 and 6? I never understood it. And so there's this whole theory going around that maybe it's because of the Star Wars thing, that once they got the Star Wars thing, they just wanted, let's get Game of Thrones behind us and get on to doing what we really want to do, which is Star Wars. I can understand why that question would come up. I can. However, I want us to play a little game of dates. All right. Here's the thing. Game of Thrones was announced that they were going to only have 2 more seasons. This is following the end of season 6. They were only going to have 2 more seasons, and those seasons would be 7 and 6 episodes on July 30th of 2016. It wasn't until February 6th of 2018, nearly 18 months later, that it was announced that Benioff and Weiss would be going on to do Star Wars films. Now, look, I have always told you guys that by the time we hear official announcements about stuff, things have actually been in the works for a while. Ben Affleck, for an example, is an extreme, but Ben Affleck was cast as Batman 6 months before they ever made the announcement that he was going to be playing Batman. So I'm always telling you that. However, this is like almost 18 months. I do not believe at all that any sort of a deal was made or even discussions had begun with Benioff and Weiss about doing Star Wars prior to them making the announcement about the 7 episodes and the 6 episodes. I think that was already done and locked. This is just too large of a time difference at this point. Not to mention that, both the HBO executives and Benioff and Weiss have talked for a long time about how they never intended Game of Thrones to be an ongoing series. They said they've got their story in mind, they're going to do that, and they're not going to go anywhere beyond that. So it's not like this kind of came out of nowhere. They never intended this to be an ongoing series until people stopped watching it. So, Rob, I can understand personally why people would raise an eyebrow and wonder about this. I think it's clear why you would at least wonder that. But also, to me, it's clear that this just simply wasn't the case, and I'm left to still be completely befuddled as to why you make the last 2 seasons 6 and 7 episodes concurrently when you ain't hurting for the money to do it anyway. Do you see any possible legitimacy to maybe they were rushing through this just so they can get it behind them, move on to Star Wars? How do you see it?
No, I think it has nothing to do with Star Wars at all. It was a decision that was made prior to that. I mean, they whether it had to do with budget or scheduling, the people they were dealing with have careers. Sophie Turner was making X-Men movies. I mean, you never know whatever was going on. There's a lot of other things that happen in the making of a show. This show was shot in multiple countries, over the course of a year. I mean, the actual production itself, incredibly difficult to achieve.
Yes, nightmarish.
And I think that it really had to do with those issues. I mean, I honestly think that, and they've said that they didn't think they had enough story to drag it out. I mean, maybe if it had gone 10 seasons, we would have been like, get on with it already.
Yeah.
And Monday morning quarterbacking is never something I'd like to do, but I don't.
But we all do it.
We're doing it now. What do genre fans, what do fans of these kinds of movies like to do? Tell the creators how they could have done better and how they've let us down. And certainly they've let me down. So I would say that it has nothing to do with Star Wars. And by the way, I'm excited for their Star Wars movie. I think they've got the time to craft them, come up with the story, and it's going to be great. I'm in.
The interesting thing to me here, too, when you're talking about what they've done with Game of Thrones and all this kind of stuff, what I think a lot of people forget, including the people, especially the people who seem to be upset by what's going on this season. You're not happy with it. I'm thrilled. But what I find that some people on both sides tend to forget is that for 8 years, they have given us the most talked about, beloved, iconic shows in history. But then, unlike you, Rob, who are like, oh, I just don't like a couple of episodes, there are people who are like now just wanting to throw away the entire series at this point. Game of Thrones, what? These guys didn't know what they were doing. They created 8 years of the most iconic, incredible stuff. And by the way, I'm going to throw this in there too, going to your point about how you didn't want to get to 10 seasons and feel like, come on, get on with things. There have been a couple of seasons that were good, but honestly, I felt where nothing happened. Like there have been a couple of seasons where I felt this is epic kind of stuff, but it really feels like it's dragging around season
Arya
3.
Stark's training. I thought that was going on
forever.
I agree. I mean, there were a couple of things like that. So I don't know. It's all, you were right. You used the word hindsight, Rob. And I think you're absolutely right about that. Like they probably looked at this. I'm assuming there was a part of this where they looked at and said, hey, you know, we don't want to drag to the finish line. Let's give things a good pace and let's blah, blah, blah. To me, though, I am still sitting here absolutely befuddled about the whole idea about knocking 7 episodes out of your final 2 seasons. I don't get it. I never will until they explain it. But hey, I want to say this, guys. I never saw this. Apparently it came out like 5 or 6 months ago. Fender Guitars on their YouTube channel. They have this amazing video that one of our viewers sent to me yesterday, where it's like 6 of the most iconic guitarists in the world, from different genres. Like Anthrax guy, who's the country music musician who's in all those Nationwide Are on Your Side commercials with Peyton, with Peyton Manning. You know the guy I'm talking about. He does it, but anyway, he's in there.
My genre.
And Weiss sitting in with them, and they do this metal version, all of them playing these guitars, these metal versions, with each one of them taking a moment to rip out a solo. And Weiss, I got to show it to you after the thing, because Weiss sits there, and he's the last guy to go. They go through all these iconic guitarists doing all these amazing things, and then it gets to him to do a solo. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, he's really good. And so if you guys haven't seen
what is he playing? Does he rip out the Game of Thrones theme?
Yeah, they're all playing this big composed, all the guitarists are sitting at the same time and doing this big Game of Thrones theme.
Oh.
And it's gorgeous. And then they get to a part where each one of them does a solo. So they do kind of the main theme, as all the guitarists are playing the background parts and everything. Then after they go through that for about a minute, the first guitarist rips off this major solo as everybody else keeps the main theme going. Then the next guitarist does it, then the next guitarist, and then it gets to Weiss.
Oh, is it Kenny Chesney? Is that his name? No, I don't know. Oh,
might be. I can't remember which guy it is. I'm not a country music guy. He wears
like a black hat, maybe, right? I don't know.
But if you guys,
Brooks, right?
No, it was not Brooks. I can tell you that. But if you guys get a chance, look it up because it's actually really, really fun.